Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day, Thursday, Casual Thurs, that's what we call it, and Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, October 30th, 2020. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps and steps and steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, writer from the New Republic, host The Politics of Everything, Alex Pareene will be joining us this Casual Friday. Meanwhile, it's not too casual. It's the final weekend before the election. The race dynamics seem to be basically static. It's another record-breaking day, however, for COVID cases. We have reached over 90,000 new cases as of yesterday. Over 1,000 new deaths yesterday, bringing the total to nearly 230,000 deaths in this country. And Trump pretends it's not happening. Meanwhile, a Republican-dominated federal appeals court looks to toss, potentially, thousands of Minnesota ballots. And the stimulus deal officially dead. Economic relief may not come for months. New report, the Department of Justice quashed an inquiry into the 2014 police killing of 12-year-old Tamir Rice. And Glenn Greenwald quits The Intercept over suggested edits on his Hunter Biden piece. Meanwhile, the Trump administration boots gray wolves from the endangered list. And following Ossoff's roasting, Purdue chickens out of the last Georgian Senate debate. And surprise, Trump's senior prescription drug plan? Sad joke. And folks, Jeremy Corbyn suspended by Labor Party in Britain, and you folks can relax. UPS found Tucker Carlson's top secret package. All this and more on today's program. Excuse me. It is Friday. We are now 4 days away from the beginning of the end of the election. Tuesday will be the last day that you can vote, and the last day in some instances may be that votes will be counted, depending on what our conservative-dominated federal courts have to say. We will talk more about that as the day goes on. I've got to be honest with you folks. I don't know how you're doing, but I feel like I haven't slept in weeks, and the anxiety is I'm all over the place. The one thing I can tell you, and the only thing that I think that we can really say for sure in terms of the state of the race, is that when you compare where we were in 2016, people have this sense that the polls were way off. And the national polls were actually quite accurate. And there were some state polls, some states that were underpolled, frankly. But what you can see in the data this time in 2016, and not specifically the 30th, because I think the date of the election was a little bit later. But 4 days out, if you looked back in 2016, you will see a tightening happening. There was a tightening in the race. The trajectory was that Clinton was dropping, Trump was rising. That was what the trajectory was in 2016. That is not the trajectory in 2020. In 2020, the race, and I'm talking specifically in terms of in specific states, seems to be more or less static. Now, the only factor that we can't really assess, I think I think the pollsters have confidence about it, but I don't have that same level of confidence, but that's because I'm not a math person. But we don't know what the disenfranchisement will bring us. We don't know the implications of ballots not being counted. There has been a concerted effort by the conservatives on the state courts and particularly the federal courts and particularly the Supreme Court to diminish the number of ballots that are going to be counted, to diminish the not only, we can see vote suppression in multiple different ways. One is we narrow the number of people who are eligible to vote. That has been an ongoing project by the Republican Party. And now what we're seeing are the courts saying we are now going to limit the counting of not only eligible voters, but legitimately cast ballots. Doesn't matter if the ballot was filled out before Election Day. Doesn't matter if it was postmarked on or before Election Day. We may limit the number of ballots that actually can be counted, even if they were executed legally. And frankly, except for Florida 2000, I don't know if we've ever had that situation. I don't know if we've ever had a situation in this country where we've had ballots that were legally cast but will not be counted because the mail screwed up, or it's conceivable. It's conceivable based upon the way that they're talking now that, maybe they'll just run out of time with some of these federal courts, but we will talk more about that. The latest is out of Minnesota. We will get to that, but let us turn now to the closing argument of the president and backed up by his family, which is on a day, and this happens almost every day now, when this country has crossed a new threshold, a new record for coronavirus cases. Yesterday, it was 90,728 new cases. And we are now seeing, as expected, a lagging rise in hospitalization rates and numbers and also deaths. So we are now, as of yesterday, was over 1,000 deaths, 1,004 deaths. And we are now, the deaths and the hospitalizations have now caught up. They're lagging indicators. The deaths we're seeing now were from new cases 4 to 5 weeks ago. And that means that these 90,000 cases, these new records that we're seeing now, are going to lead to more deaths down the road. Experts are now starting to warn, according to CNN, that the daily death rates will triple by mid-January. That, of course, is a function of what we do to mitigate the spread of the disease. But Right now, it doesn't look so good. But here is Donald Trump with his final message for the country, which is, don't worry about it.
Riots they're having in France, the people are tired. They can't do it anymore. They can't do it anymore. They're losing their businesses. They're losing their jobs. They go back and the business is closed for 9 months. We can't do it anymore. They can't do it. We know the disease. We social distance. We do all of the things that you have to do. If you get close, wear a mask. Always controversial. It's not controversial to me. You get close, you wear a mask.
Pause it for 1 second. Pause it for 1 second. I just want to point something out that I think if you're watching this, you can see that is sort of I don't know what's the word here. You're Matt. Am I looking for? Is it ironic?
It's like some visual irony. I would say.
And in fact, this is like one of the first clips I've seen in a while where they don't seem to have made an effort to have people behind him wearing masks. Usually they make the people standing behind him or sitting behind him wear masks, so it looks like he's encouraging it. And then you look the camera shots of people around the entire stadium or wherever it is, they're not wearing masks. But in this instance, it appears that 80% of the people sitting behind him are not wearing masks. Let's see.
Not controversial to me. You get close, you wear a mask. Social distance, social distance. You know the bottom line, though? You're going to get better. You're going to get better. If I can get better, anybody can get better. And I got better fast.
Jeez.
They were so happy. They couldn't believe it. That was probably the happiest day that they've had in years. And then they came out of the hospital.
There you go. That was not apparently enough for the Trump campaign. That's the message, though. You're going to get better. You're going to get better. Wear a mask. I mean, but not in this specific instance. Here is Don Jr. that same day, or I should say now evening, on with Laura Ingraham on Fox News. He's very excited. I feel like he gets a lot more energy in the evening. I don't know what that is. But I'll tell you. But here he is on Laura Ingram's show.
Out all the stops. Now honestly, the virus is attending the rally. Apparently they're waving flags too.
These people are truly morons. You know what I mean? And I like how they go after Scott Atlas because he's not an epidemiologist, but Sanjay Gupta now magically is. I mean, give me a break, Laura. The reality is this. If you look, I put it up on my Instagram a couple days ago because I went through the CDC data because I kept hearing about new infections. But I was like, well, why aren't they talking about deaths? Oh, because the number is almost nothing. Because we've gotten control of this thing. We understand how it works. They have the therapeutics to be able to deal with this. If you look at that, look at my Instagram. It's gone to almost nothing. We're outperforming Europe in a positive way so well because we've gotten a hold of this. But they understand that just...
Well, it's actually going the opposite direction. And apparently he has a graph on his Instagram that is, he's misinterpreting what the graph says. It's I don't know the details of it, but we can just, I'll reiterate the numbers that we're breaking new records almost every single day for infections. And we haven't broken new records for deaths, but it's certainly back up from where it was. We had, I think, about 300 or 400 fewer deaths a couple of months ago. And so he's out of his mind.
He was going to punch through the back of that chair. He was completely amped up. Like the way he was sitting, that his demeanor is just psycho. That's not... Gotta be cool, man.
He seems to have a lot of energy. I'll tell you, boy, if they could bottle that or, maybe put it in some type of vial that you could take.
Yeah, productivity would soar.
You'd make a lot of money selling that kind of energy.
It is interesting that now it seems like the Trumps really feel like Donald having gotten it and recovering is like the best thing that could have happened for them. Like it's this great boon.
Yeah, because it speaks to exactly who they go for is people who don't ultimately get affected by stuff. So they have this example that, hey, you can get this and not really be affected by it. I mean, I'm terrified of the effect it has in North Dakota. Like, I think a whole bunch of old people in North Dakota are being way more flagrant about stuff since Trump recovered.
I'd like to see that chart from when he got it to now and the rise in infection rate.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And it also is a wonderful metaphor as the stimulus talks completely break down. And that's it. And I should say this before, and we will get to Alex Pareene in a moment. I will say this about the stimulus. It is highly unlikely that if Joe Biden wins the election and the Democrats take the Senate, that we're going to see any type of COVID economic relief before February 1st. Maybe we'll see it in that first week, that last week of January. But the Republicans, I think, are going to go immediately into obstruction mode. And for some people, that's all well and good. Trump Jr., he walks around. He's not bothered by the lack of stimulus whatsoever. For millions of people who are facing eviction, who are running out of unemployment, who are thrust back into poverty, it is a much bigger problem. But first, a word from our sponsor. Today's program is sponsored by SunsetLakeCBD.com. I have been, I'm not going to lie, I've been hitting the CBD quite a bit. In fact, I know a lot of people who have been telling me that that's basically how they're getting through a lot of these days here. It's a relaxant. And Sunset Lake CBD, they're a farm. They're located outside of Burlington, Vermont. They have amazing farming practices. They practice regenerative farming. They practice integrated pest management. So they're 100% pesticide free. The way that they deal with pests when they're growing their hemp is by basically releasing predators of other pests in their fields. They do this in conjunction with the University of Vermont. They're 100% organic in terms of their in terms of what they feed their hemp. And their products are fantastic. They have just come out with a new Guatemalan dark roast coffee that is infused with CBD. It is organic. It's Rainforest Alliance certified. So check that out. That has been my normal weekend brew, and frankly, now a little bit during the week. But they also have a fantastic salve for sore muscles, and I use it for my eczema that has CBD and arnica in it and beeswax. They have tinctures, which I use to go to sleep. They have smokables. Matt, where are you on the smokables these days?
Yeah, actually had a pre-roll left and shared that with somebody the other day. And so I checked those out for folks who aren't, want something to, basically an oral fixation, smoke something that's nice and relaxing.
It's very relaxing. They have gummy bears. So check it out. And they're giving you 20% off with the coupon code LEFTISBEST. One word, left is best, SunsetLakeCBD.com. All right. Do we have Alex? I want to welcome to the program, staff writer at the New Republic, also host of, or co-host, I should say, of the podcast, The Politics of Everything. Is that right, Alex? Is that what it's called? Oh, look at you. You've shaved.
I did, just for you.
Oh, well, thank you. So is this the first time you've shaved during the pandemic?
No, but it's the first time in a little while.
Well, you look like 15 years younger, I got to say. Makes you look very boyish. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So I don't know, Alex. I mean, how are you doing I started off the show by, telling folks, copping to the fact that, I feel like I haven't slept in weeks, and there just seems to be a tremendous amount of anxiety. We see the polls look good, but we just don't know
Right.
all the different shenanigans that are going on. You had a piece, I guess it was a week or two ago, Supreme Court justices are politicians too. I think we can extend that to
The
federal
judiciary. Yeah.
appellate judges as well.
Yeah. And it's been, I should have waited another week or two to write that piece, because the scope of it has only become clearer since then. I wrote that in response to this explanation of one piece of supposed Supreme Court doctrine that was going to decide how they decided all the election cases. And I think at that point, even that's moot now. And they're just inventing entirely new justifications for like strange decisions about ballot counting and sorting.
There's one actually that just took place in your hometown, in your home state.
Yeah.
And this was a federal appellate court that not en banc. It was a 3-judge panel, one of whom was appointed by George W. Bush. The other was appointed by Donald Trump. And that judge in particular had the rare distinction of being considered unqualified by the ABA. I mean, that, that happens occasionally, but very, very rarely. And that court, we had Rick Hassan on the other day to talk about why the Supreme Court ruled the way they did in Wisconsin and why they did in Pennsylvania. And this, like you say, took it to another level where you have a federal court negating not only a state court, but also a state election official on how to run their elections.
Right.
And so we're like, each time the federal courts, and that doctrine was made up whole cloth. There's nothing that the Supreme Court could say that, because they're heading in this way. They really want, it seems, to count as little votes as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a question of how does a federal court, including the Supreme Court, what kind of deference do they give to the states for running their own elections? And who do they give that deference to? And apparently the ends of that are irrelevant. Whose ballots. I mean, we're 3 or 4 days out. I may have mailed if I live in Minnesota, I mailed my ballot yesterday. According to this federal court, it may not count.
It may not. Yeah.
I got it in 4 days early.
Yeah. And by the way, if you are in Minnesota and that is your situation, you can go cast a vote in person and spoil your mailed-in ballot if you're worried about it showing up late. But yes, it does seem like the doctrine, whatever justification they use in their opinions when they write opinions, the actual doctrine seems to be here that the people who should be in charge of running state elections is legislatures controlled by Republicans. Like that, basically, period. You could have a Democratic attorney general, you can have Democratic election officials, a Democratic governor, but the courts are now deciding basically like if the Republicans have, in Minnesota's, I think the last divided legislature, but if Republicans have state legislature, like we're going to let them decide all the rules in terms of whose ballots are getting counted in November. Yeah,
it's pretty stunning to see it this naked, right?
Yeah,
and
it is.
And on one hand, it hopefully will provide the inspiration for Democrats in the Senate to engage in some type of court reform. I mean, what's really coming out of this whole story is just we have multiple now institutions. Look, the Senate has always been fairly undemocratic. I mean, it was, in the history of the country, I'm not going to say it's not a recent phenomenon, but it's not for most of the history of the country. We did not have a Senate that was even elected by voters.
Right.
And but it still is wildly undemocratic. And now we're just seeing I don't know. I guess it's weird. For a long time, I was always a little bit allergic to talk about the threats to democracy in this country because it seemed like hyperbole. But we're really, I mean, if it's on a sliding scale, we're really sliding down that scale, as it were.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And I think there still is a reluctance to be clear-eyed about the current state of American democracy and what it threatens to become, because it especially for people who came of age at a time of great stability, not necessarily a time of like strong democracy, but a time of great stability in terms of these institutions. Like, I think it's hard for them to be real about what the courts have become, right? Or just how broken the Senate is. And I think a lot of our sort of historical comparisons don't map well, because people are always saying like, well, look, the joke is like it's illegal for the president to make himself a dictator or something like that. But like, it's not going to look like Nazi Germany in overnight. What it's gonna look more like is the sort of degraded, like, fake democracy we had the last time, or before we actually sort of expanded suffrage and made our institutions more representative. It's going to look a lot more like the sort of era of the Lochner Court and the Gilded Age than it will like 20th century fascism looks to. I think.
I mean, my sense is too that that what we had, I mean, I don't know if this is true necessarily of the Supreme Court, although I think certainly in the Lochner era, you could argue that it was. But it feels like to a certain extent, we had the construct of democratic institutions, but we had not fulfilled, we almost had not filled those edifices up in some way, right? Like, yeah. where the voting worked, but the problem was we were limiting who could vote.
Yeah,
essentially. And yeah. I mean, we're still doing that, but the thrust of it was to exclude large swaths of people. And obviously we did this from an economic standpoint. And now it feels like once some of those barriers were weakened in some ways, the idea was like, okay, well, you've weakened the barriers as to who has entry into these buildings. But so what we're going to do is we're going to destroy the buildings.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And I mean, that's, I think that's part of the Trump promise, and the current Republican promise is like, we'll blow this thing up rather than let it become an actual multiracial democracy. Like, we'll steer the ship into the iceberg purposefully instead of letting them take the helm. And I think it's like that's sort of one of the implicit promises of that movement, right? It's like, we would rather break this thing than let everyone share it.
Right. I just want to look a little bit forward to, in the event that Donald Trump loses, right? I mean, I keep vacillating back and forth about how much I should sort of embrace the numbers, and you hear some of the pollsters saying like, this could be a huge blowout, and it could. Yeah. And it's also sort of, it's also, I think, problematic in and of itself that it would need to be.
Right.
As opposed to just like being a close election, because I think there is a general feeling that if this is close, there is enough of an apparatus already set up by the Republicans to diminish it. I mean, to undercut it. But let's talk a little bit about what we anticipate happening if Trump does lose, in terms of like what's happening with the Republicans. I mean, there was a piece I had yesterday, and I can't find it at the moment, about I think it's a guy's name, Potter, who was formerly a member of the Federal Election Commission, who's now working for a Protect the Vote organization. And there was a quote in there that I just found stunning, where this guy had said something to the effect of like, I just can't believe that there's a Republican who's trying to diminish the number of people voting. And I was just like, what?
Right.
We have tape of Paul Weyrich in 1980. Mm-hmm. There's video. I mean, people can Google this, where he is addressing a Christian organization, some type of big conference, and he chastises them for being goo-goo about government saying that we don't want there to be a lot of voters, that we have more leverage when there's fewer people who vote. Yeah. And this isn't, Weyrich is not some type of outlier. Co-founded the Heritage Foundation, co-founded the American Legislative Executive Council. I mean, these are two pillars of the conservative corporate movement in this country. He coined the phrase moral majority, which dominated our politics and sort of, you know, it is mutated, but it is more or less like, you know, the next, or I should say the antecedent to, you know, the Tea Party, even on some level. So this has been a Republican staple for a long time. You know, the problem is the Republican Party. Right. Donald Trump just happens to be the mouthpiece for it.
Yeah,
at
he's
this point.
The current avatar of it. Right.
Exactly. Well, how successful do you think they're going to be if Donald Trump loses in sort of rewriting this narrative? Like, how long is it going to take them to be like, Donald Trump was, you know, it wasn't so much the policies, it was Donald Trump was a horrible person?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's going to depend a lot on how much help they get, both from the mainstream press and from the Democratic Party, I think. And to be very pessimistic, it's you can go back to 2009 and just how quickly George W. Bush just literally disappeared from everyone's mouths and then eventually from their consciousness until he, you know, came back as a beloved painter.
Right. Barack Obama was very adamant about turn the page. The page. We did turn the page, except for the problem is the book is still there, and sometimes these things come back to haunt you.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I think that on the one hand, a lot of people have been very radicalized by this presidency on the sort of soft liberal and left side. A lot of people got very radicalized by this, and you hope that doesn't go away the day Biden is president-elect. And you hope that what that means is that they force the Democrats who rely on them for their support, they sort of force them to actually treat the Republicans as a dangerous opponent and not, you know, the people who can be reasoned with now that the bad man has gone away.
Right.
And you know, a lot is it's gonna be a little different from George W. Bush too, obviously, because Trump, the person, is not going to disappear to Texas. You know, he's going to be holding rallies, you know, probably for the rest of his life, just because he enjoys it.
He's going to be like Sarah Palin was.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
totally,
people forget that when Sarah Palin lost, she was still on the scene as a political figure for a couple of years,
right?
Like, touring around at these places, and Donald Trump is going to do that times, I don't know, 5 or 10, right? In terms of like his presence, and he's probably going to have some type of media organization, and he's basically going to dare the Democrats and I think the Washington bureaucracy, and maybe not just the Washington bureaucracy, but maybe also like, you know, some state attorney generals to come after him.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, it is like, I keep, you know, the you know, that the Time story about Trump and Turkey, and how he was saying, like, you know, they couldn't quite, you know, no one could figure out why Trump is telling him to lay off this investigation, but like, you just got to
just to be clear, let me just fill people in on what the story was.
Yeah. It was there was a criminal investigation into a Turkish bank that was violating the Iranian sanctions. And when the U.S. attorney in charge of it, Bill Barr, kept telling him to lay off, and they wanted to basically end the case with a slight admission of wrongdoing, but no punishment for any individuals or the bank itself. And it was clear that it was happening, like, directed by Barr acting on behalf of Trump, who had some sort of crooked arrangement with the Turkish government. This should have. I mean, we say this like monthly. Should have been a blockbuster story in a normal era, but it's one of those things where I do wonder if the not I think journalists have been working as hard as they can to uncover these things, but I do think like the fact that Democratic leadership in Congress decided this year after impeachment that they were just going to lay off oversight entirely because they thought it was a political loser. Like that will determine, I think, what the future of this looks like, because what haven't we learned yet, and how will we ever learn it? Like
they had laid off oversight before impeachment too, largely.
Yeah, they were forced in. I mean, they were effectively forced into doing impeachment as narrowly as possible. And that's what I wonder about. Like, is Trump going to be in legal trouble, or like, are there going to be consequences for what happened during this presidency? Is like, this has been the time to have been investigating and uncovering the wrongdoing, and outside of like a few particularly good journalistic outlets, no one has been putting in that work.
I mean, this is one of the themes that I've been, and I think we've probably talked about it too in the past, harping on for an extended period of time, because the Democrats have failed to show the American over and over again. Impeachment was one of the few opportunities, and yes, Nancy Pelosi was forced into doing it by a lot of even those frontline Democrats that she supposedly was protecting. They came out publicly and said, "We want this because there needs to be some accounting." Even those frontline Democrats who are supposedly politically more moderate and ideologically not necessarily aligned with the left of the party, and I think that's true from an ideological standpoint. They tend to be younger though, and they also tend to be more partisan, and they seem to understand that there's an expectation that they will not just, I mean, I'm looking at this even in the most crass, I think, sort of like cynical terms. There's an expectation that their constituents want them to be opponents of the Republicans.
Yes.
And one thing is clear from impeachment, you don't even have to follow impeachment. When the Democrats say we're impeaching Donald Trump over this, they are showing, not telling. That there's something wrong. Yes. And when, Nancy Pelosi can send a letter or Chuck Schumer can send a letter, but you need to do something that I could watch and with the volume off on the TV and know that something was wrong. Like they shouldn't have gone in for the hearing for Amy Coney Barrett. They should have showed that it was a sham, not get in there, participate in the sham and say this is a sham until Dianne Feinstein says it was a sham, but it was also one of the best shams I've ever been to.
I'm so glad you organized such a wonderful sham.
Right.
Well, and the other thing, like the other crazy lesson of impeachment that everyone's forgotten is how many people working in the administration, various capacities, came out of the woodwork. Like actually, which has been something that no one has been willing to do until they leave the administration and then write a book. That was like the time when it actually there was an appetite within this administration among lower level people to actually, they were wishing for an outlet to show what they have been witnessing. And I don't know, it's wild that the idea that uncovering wrongdoing by the administration is a political loser. It
is bizarre. And I will say, I think the media has done a pretty good job, but the problem is that they can only sort of like uncover these things. They can't really make it a story on their own, although, they certainly have, but in the past, but to the extent that they have, I'm thinking like the emails in 2016.
Exactly.
They are able to do it because they can pay, the Republicans give them the scaffolding. For stuff like that. Benghazi, it's fake, this and that, but they built the edifice, and then the media can sort of operate on top of that. If the Democrats don't react, the media is built in such a way that it cannot it can't echo these things. It cannot.
So the New York Times can put a big investigation Trump's taxes, for example. It got a lot of mileage out of that. It put it on the front page a couple times. The New York Times cannot continually put Trump's taxes on the front page every day unless someone is making it continually news. You know, they uncovered what there is to uncover, and then they had to move on because there wasn't an official. There was no official waving them around saying this warrants an investigation. Here's what's scandalous about it.
That brings us to the media. We can talk a little bit about that. And well, let me just one more note. You know, we have a clip of Marsha Blackburn, senator from Tennessee, is she right? And she was on a committee hearing with I think it was the head of ABC or of Alphabet, I should say, Google, essentially. And she was talking about there was an employee there who had said something critical of her. And she started by saying, hey, is that person still there? Have you fired that person yet? As if this was like a normal behavior of an elected official to threaten someone from a company about an individual.
Yes.
No, this is not like you're involved in predatory behavior. You're involved in monopolistic behavior. We're going to take you down. No, it's like you've got an employee there that I have an issue with.
I have a personal issue.
I have a personal issue with. And that is, you know, when you allow Trump to get away with this stuff, that's the danger, is right. It starts to get like that's what normalization is.
Right.
Normalization is not like, okay, Trump did this again. It is that it is adopted as a modality by our political class, and all of society doesn't just fail to hold him account, but it ends up failing to hold everybody to account to these standards.
Right. Right. The threat of normalization is not that everyone's going to start speaking in incoherent run-on sentences at rallies where old people collapse from heat exhaustion. It's like not like now that Trump. It's that people are going to behave with complete impunity, believing they will never be held to account for anything they do.
Exactly, and you know, that's what's happening. I mean, that story came and went, and that's it. Boom. All right, let's talk a little bit more about media. The big story in media news the past 24 hours is Glenn Greenwald has resigned from The Intercept, the media outlet that he co-founded with Jeremy Scahill and Laura Poitras 4 or 5 years ago now, maybe 6 years.
6 years ago, I think. Yeah.
And it was ostensibly over a piece that he wrote that was ostensibly, well, that's the thing. I found the piece also, like his editors, a little bit disjointed. Ostensibly, it's about the suppression or the suppression of an email or two, frankly, of Hunter Biden's. The big one was that he was getting an email from a Ukrainian official who supposedly implying that official had met with Joe Biden. I guess when he was not vice president anymore. It was after the fact, I believe. And that element, and that in one email exchange, Hunter Biden with some of his partners said, you got to put aside 10% for the big guy. And ostensibly that was Joe Biden. Based upon Hunter Biden, my speculation is that's we got to put aside another 10% that he's going to pocket himself, frankly.
I think that's, but yes.
but nevertheless, even if we stipulate that, these emails don't really in any way beyond that implicate Joe Biden. And in fact, in the story that he wrote, Greenwald said there's no evidence that any of this implicates Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And so the story was sort of about how it was being suppressed, but sort of about like, sort of trafficking these innuendo, really is what it was.
Yeah.
And I saw Glenn Greenwald release the emails between him and his editor.
Yeah.
And I have to say, like, I thought the edits were pretty legit.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your take on this?
I mean, I should disclose, I have worked with known Glenn for a long time, although we have not spoken recently.
I have also known Glenn for a long, long time.
And I like Glenn as a person, as a human being. I like him a great deal. I think that I think he's lost the plot to some degree, and I think that it's because of he has frequently mistakes his personal animosity for certain people with a belief that they must therefore be corrupt, and that logic has driven him to some places that I find strange this year. And I think he's also motivated by the fact that he genuinely believes the foreign policy establishment represented by the Democratic Party, represented by Joe Biden, is a danger and a threat. That motivates a lot of his behavior as well. He thinks that the foreign policy establishment is a threat to the globe, and possibly even a threat to his own freedom, because he thinks, because of his national security and his work with classified material, he thinks that he might be targeted. But I also know his editor Peter Moss, and I recommend go to Glenn's Substack, read the emails between him and his editor Peter Moss, a very, very thoughtful and conscientious editor and a great journalist. And if you are involved in, I almost wanted to write this today, but Jacob Silverman wrote a much better piece than I would have on short notice. That's on newrepublic.com. But if you are involved in opinion writing, opinion journalism, or you are an opinion editor, Peter Moss's memo to Glenn on how to fix his story is like a masterclass in how both to try to deal with a challenging writer and in how to try to make an argument as solid as it can be. And I will play devil's advocate very slightly here, because having worked with Glenn in the past, he is correct that his contract stipulated that if he didn't want to be edited, he didn't have to be edited.
Right.
He had that at Salon as well. And I think, based on how big this blow up gets, I wonder from the perspective of his editors and at The Intercept, they were sort of getting tired of dealing with him as he went further down this Hunter Biden sort of rabbit hole. But I do wonder if it wouldn't have been in the best interest of the organization to just sort of let him have this, instead of turning it into a thing where he becomes a martyr over this ridiculous story.
Yeah, I mean, I think I get the sense that there was a lot of things building up on both sides.
I sort of think so
that
too, yeah.
This became, I think for Glenn, it became the sort of opportune time to pull the ripcord, I guess, as it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the piece would have been written, and it was muddled enough, and sort of not terribly different than other stuff that we've heard. I mean, it's on some level, it is the parallel to Tucker Carlson saying, we have all of these documents. We digitized them. We put them on a thumb drive. We sent them to UPS, and then they didn't make it.
It disappeared.
And then people had responded to him, I guess reporters said, but don't you have copies? He's like, we do have copies, yes. But the point is, someone's reading my texts, and it's sort of like, wait a second. Now it's you highlight the first order thing, that someone's stolen the documents, but it's really the second order thing that you're talking about, supposedly, that someone's reading your texts.
Right.
And then wait a second, so what you're suggesting is that someone wanted to prevent you from getting the hard copies of stuff that you had surely already had copies of, or people wanted to know what was in those documents that are so explosive. Why aren't they being released if they're so explosive? There's a second order quality to all of this.
Yeah.
That, like you say, I think loses the thread, because it becomes more, I think, about the individuals that there is, and there is a certain amount of and this is the era, right? I mean, Donald Trump talks about the coronavirus in relation to it's not fair to him.
Right.
And there is, I think there's a lot of that going on these days across the board, where there's this perception that these stories are people conflate. And I think this is, there's a part of this is like Glenn's best work, it seems to me, has been in sort of, aside from the Snowden stuff, which I think is very important stuff, has been in calling out sort of a dual track of justice and rules for people in this country.
Right.
But the plot gets a little bit lost when he thinks he's on the wrong side of that.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I mean, the whole point is that, I mean, he has power. And, he justifies going on Tucker Carlson show, and Tucker Carlson is incredibly disingenuous. He lies on his show. He simply does.
Yeah.
And I also know just from the past that he has played a role on TV, during the Iraq War. I know that he feigned concerned about the Iraq War when he was saying off camera he didn't. I mean, that is used to be the type of person that Glenn Greenwald would go after.
Right.
And skewer. And
he's taking enemy of my enemy just too far. I mean, it really just comes down to that. I think it's disappointing. But yeah.
I mean, I think it's a loss for, for what he represented in terms of a voice in the media, in my estimation.
Yeah.
He was someone who was able to critique because of his independence. And in some respects, he got, it became too personal with him. Like, I mean, I think he got booted from what I understand, from his regular haunting ground on MSNBC at one point. I'm not sure exactly what the context was, but, people get disinvited all the time. I mean, it happens, and it's, I mean, that stinks, but it's also like, that's not the end game.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it's just it's not the end game. It should not necessarily motivate stuff that is principled, it seems to me. And I say this as someone who, I got fired from them too at one point. And I think it was, I had a critique, but it was a broader critique of not just MSNBC. It was like, a problem that we were facing as a society in trying to assess the reality of things. Let's take a quick break for a moment, and we'll come back and wrap this up a little bit, because I would like to get your response on Tucker's apology, or I should say non-apology, for finding his package. Hold on for 1 sec. We'll take a quick break. So we had teased this. Let's play this clip, because I think this is indicative of really a failure on the right to deal with the moment in many respects, right? Like this is all about supposedly blockbuster stuff about Hunter Biden that is supposedly implicates Joe Biden because it's his son. And there's no doubt. I mean, I think like it's been quite clear for an extended period of time, Hunter Biden traded on his dad's name.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
But you and I could fill up an hour with people from all walks of life, including politics.
Yeah.
Democrat and obviously Republican, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
The last Republican president, his last name was Bush.
Yes.
He was not our first Bush president, right?
Yeah.
And he's not exactly, but for a couple of lucky breaks, he goes the way of Hunter Biden, right?
Yeah.
I mean, George W. Bush. And so, this is not an uncommon thing, but the right seems to have run out of everything. So it's all second order stuff.
Right.
So instead of talking about this blockbuster material, you had Tucker Carlson talking about how he tried to mail the blockbuster material and the package disappeared. And then, of course, the second night, he had to come out and say, well, the company I didn't name, UPS, said we found it. So here he is. But there's still a mystery. Play this clip.
The main question we had never changed. How did our flash drive get separated from the package that we sent it in? That seemed like something worth knowing. The envelope was securely sealed. We know that. 2 witnesses saw our producer seal it, and UPS does not dispute that.
Oh, God.
Was the package torn open accidentally by a machine? That seems unlikely. UPS says that almost never happens. So we're left with the obvious explanation. Someone, for some reason, opened our package and removed a flash drive containing documents that were damaging to the Biden family. We'd love to know who would do that and why. It would be helpful to see the envelope itself, but UPS says we can't see it because they threw it away. So here we are. We got our flash drive back today, and that's great. What we'd really like are some answers. And speaking of answers, it occurs as reading this that we mentioned the documents that we get from a lot of people. And we've received an awful lot of documents recently about Hunter Biden. We haven't aired all of them. In fact, many we have not aired. The ones that are pertinent to his business career abroad, favors he did on behalf of foreign clients with the help of his father, that seems relevant. And it seems like news, and we brought it to you, and we're not ashamed of that. But there are a lot of documents about Hunter Biden's personal life that we haven't brought to you, and we're not going to, and we should tell you why. One is the obvious answer. He's not running for president. And so to the extent those documents pertain to his dad, of course.
I could say that
But
he's
Hunter
a
Biden
horrible
is
person, but I'm not going to
a
say
fallen
that.
man at this point. And I should also say that I knew Hunter Biden fairly well. We lived near each other in Washington for quite some time. I knew his wife, who was an absolutely outstanding person, a good person. I never thought Hunter Biden was a bad person. I thought he had demons.
Okay,
but
we don't need
in
to
the time
hear
I knew
this,
him, he had the
this
most
filler of
That's oh,
I'm
man.
not going to talk about what a horrible person he is.
Yeah, I mean, we got some real juicy stuff that I'm not going to share with you because it's not pertinent, but you should know.
So wait a second. So they got their thumb drive back. Like, where's the juicy stuff that was promised? Like,
I thought, yeah.
But I mean, Alex, can you imagine? Like, how many times have you gotten a package or an envelope over the course of your life where it's like, hey, it's ripped, or it's the seal is broken, or the tape on this package is ripped? And then can you imagine going on in front of millions of people
literally millions,
with a furrowed brow? Like, how did this happen? No, the only obvious explanation is that someone's intercepting my texts and that there's Democratic plants in UPS who are getting the message and can isolate the package, and that are taking the thumb drive and they're making a copy of it and then putting it back in the bag. But the bag was so ripped because these people are so bad at it that they didn't
right.
Why would you tip it off to Tucker that you've intercepted it? Like
right,
what kind of spies are these?
Yeah. That's the combination of the mundanity of that script and his delivery was incredible comedy. I'm just like the anchorman, the serious anchorman tones as he's describing like what happened, what the like, you know, when I lost a book I ordered from bookshop.com, you know, like, well, the tracking number says it's been received but not accepted at the post office.
Interesting. Well, the only explanation is that someone is aware of what I'm reading and is trying to prevent me from reading it.
Someone's trying to prevent me from reading Martin Heinrich's Introduction to Marxist Capital for some reason.
It really is. We are in a very, very weird place. Alex Pareene, I really appreciate you joining us today to walk us through it. Yeah. And I think we'll see you on Tuesday. We celebrate the 10-year anniversary of the show. And in addition, there's also a little election.
There's some other thing going on that day, too.
Exactly. Think, yeah. All right, folks, that's our time for today. We'll see you on Monday. And for those of you who are hanging around, Alex, again, thank you. We just we do the first hour replays on the Peacock app. And so then we say goodbye to those folks. And but we will see you on Tuesday. And I don't know, hopefully there'll be another installment of Tucker's saga.
Yeah, I want to know where this is going. So hopefully by Tuesday there's more.
You know, now that before I say goodbye, I just wanted to bring this up because I know you obviously you work at the New Republic. There's investigative reporters there. Okay, I always put the cap back on my toothpaste. Yet the other day, I came in and the cap was gone. Now, I ultimately looked around the floor in my bathroom and found it there, but I always put it on. It almost never happens that I would drop the toothpaste cap and then not pick it up right away.
What you're looking for is not a toothpaste cap. What you're looking for is answers.
That's all that I'm concerned about. I just am concerned about because I don't want the toothpaste to dry out next time.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could get on that would be
I
great.
will. We'll assign someone. We'll assign someone right away.
All right. Thank you, Alex, for joining
All
us. I
right.
appreciate
See ya.
it. Bye-bye. Folks, we're going to head into the fun half of the program today. Got a lot of, we wanted to take some calls, and so we're going to take some calls in the fun half today. Just a reminder, this program relies on your support. You can become a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you not only support the free show, but you also get extra content every day. Just some house cleaning on Tuesday. We're going to do the show from 12 to 1. And then we're going to do the show from 1 to 12. We're going to wind it back that way, except for we're going to do it from 1 p.m. to 12 a.m. So on Monday, it will be a 12-hour webcasting day for us. We will be joined by Emma Vigeland for the first time as a new member of the show. And I'm setting up the studio in such a way that we can get in there and both maintain some social distance, also with a huge plastic barrier. So I don't know why you don't see more of like people using clear shower curtains, but that's what I'm going for. Actually, it's like I've got the clear shower curtain, but I'm thinking I'm going to probably fix it up with just a clear sheet. And we have air filters in there that will be drawing air, and we'll have humidifiers in there that will be heavying the air. There may be a slight hum over the course of the day, but we're going to be on for 12 hours. We've got all sorts of guests, of some of your Majority Report faves, and folks who have been involved in the show since the beginning. And so it will be both fun and incredibly anxious. If we are fortunate, we will know by the end of the day whether Donald Trump has won re-election. My guess is we won't. So I'll come back on Wednesday. I'll be completely exhausted. And that's just the way it's going to go. But we had a different plan, and then the pandemic hit, and then what are you going to do? So don't forget, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. I think I'm going to be vacillating between drinking Just Coffee and the CBD infused coffee, and then roll in the alcohol. It's just a question of when I start drinking the alcohol. I don't know when that's going to be. I don't want to start too early. Will there be crying if Trump wins? Says Mo on the IM. I don't think they'll be crying, but I'll be pretty bummed. I'll be pretty bummed. Justcoffee.coop and use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Also, AM Quickie. Sign up for that bad boy at amquickie.com, or just search for it on your podcast server, or pick up the Majority app. It's all free, majorityapp.com. Don't forget, tune in to Nomi's show today. It is, who does she have on today? I knew it before, and then we had a power situation. So, okay. It is, it's going to be Titha, Bhattacharya. Right, Jamie? That's you introduced us to her.
Hell yeah. She's amazing. I bet they're going to talk about social reproduction theory.
I think it is maybe social reproduction theory or feminism for the 99%. Maybe that's what that is as well. Another way of saying that. You can check that out at 3 p.m. today at youtube.com/The Noma Key Show. Jamie, what's happening on the Antifada?
This week on the Antifada, we have not one, but two very frightening Halloween episodes. On the first one, I speak with Leslie Lee III from Struggle Session and Heather Fortune, formerly of the band Wax Idols, about two very different horror movies. Host, a very topical, very scary movie from the COVID era, and Society, a cult classic, which is says mean, true things about the rich. And then today, for our patrons, Andy has an episode with the Lit Crit guy where they talk about Beetlejuice. Also, I'm very excited about next week. We're having on the Angry Workers from the Angry Workers blog to talk about their book. And we're going to talk a lot about the possibilities for revolution and the nitty gritty of that. So might be topical next week. I don't know. Patreon.com/theantifada.
Folks, also, before Matt tells us about TMBS, stick around because I got one clip I wanted to play on today because it is when we would normally do Ken, and Ken. And so, but stick around. I want to do it in the first half of the show so that our free listeners could check it out too. But Matt, tell us what's happened on TMBS this week.
Actually tonight, Daniel Finn talked with David Griscom actually just now, and we're going to upload it on Jeremy Corbyn's suspension from labor. Finn has a piece called "The Labor Anti-Semitism Report Has Always Been a Politically Motivated Travesty," so he'll be making that case to David Griscom, and we're putting that up tonight. I think it would have been our Sunday show, but it's pretty topical, so look forward to that on the Michael Brooks Show YouTube channel and patreon.com/TMBS.
All right, so I haven't really given too much thought about long term what we're going to do about the Ken show. For those people who are relatively new to the program, Michael Brooks and I used to talk about how easy it would be to do a conservative talk show. And as a way of basically taking a day off, I mean, that was really more or less what we were thinking. Like, we could do that. It'll be just, we decided to do it for April Fools, I think we started, or maybe it was Halloween. I can't remember. But it was, we had so much fun doing it, and it was so easy. Like, it was just the idea of like, and this is when, there was just three of us on the show. Old Matt, and Michael and I. And so, the show would get even more exhausting than it is now. And we were like, we don't have to do any research. We just pick up a couple of, that's it. And it'll be fun. And so we would do a conservative talk show from Massachusetts that was loosely based on a bunch of different conservative talk shows. And Michael was from Massachusetts. I'm from Massachusetts. We would do Massachusetts accents. And you can find, if you search on YouTube, you can find the Ken and Ken show. We did it over the course of, I think, probably 7 years. And it's hard for me to imagine doing that show again with Michael having passed away. But I don't know. I haven't really thought about it long term, but certainly wasn't going to do it today. But in its place, I want to play a clip from a guy from Massachusetts who could very well have been like the third Ken on the Ken and Ken show. It's actually a clip from that group of Republicans against Trump, or what is the name of that group? It's Republican voters against Trump. So not like the professional Republican class of political, not the professional right, but just a guy who was a Republican who voted for Trump in 2016 and now the language is not safe for work, but I think you'll enjoy it. And I know Michael would have appreciated this guy. And so in lieu of Ken, and Ken, we give you Jeffrey from Mass.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Farmer. I'm from Mendon, Massachusetts. And I don't even know why I'm doing this stupid thing, because this is not what I do. I don't do social media or anything. But I cannot I can't take this anymore. This guy, he's like a Tasmanian devil. He just throws bombs everywhere. People can't even keep up with the stuff that he's saying now. And putting my children at friggin' risk going to school, the teachers putting them at risk. I want them to go to school. I want the economy to be great and everything. We all want that. I'm sick. I have an immunodeficiency. I have multiple autoimmune diseases, and I've been doing everything right. We're all supposed to be doing right. This guy couldn't lead frickin' his way out of a frickin' wet paper bag. I'm voting for Joe Biden. The reason I voted for Trump last time was because I could not stand Hillary Clinton. I don't get it. I don't understand. But if this guy, another 4 years, I can't do it. I can't do any more time with this guy. I feel like I'm in friggin' prison. It's brutal. And I've never been this way about any president. This guy should get the frick off Twitter. All he does is watch the goddamn news. Why don't you do your frickin' job, Donald Trump? Instead of frickin' whining and complaining about everything. Everyone's out to get you. You know what, dude? Frickin', walk a mile in my shoes, and then you could frickin' maybe have the right to frickin' bitch about something. Dude, you are a goddamn sorry excuse for a frickin' human being. Please, if you do not become president. Again, if we vote this guy back in again, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. Well, one more message for you, Trump. Shut the fuck up for once. For once. Why don't you admit you're fucking wrong for once? And why don't you fucking show some kind of fucking empathy towards somebody other than yourself? Good night, Donald.
I like how the dude's like, look, I'm going to say frickin' throughout this whole thing, and then at the end, forget it. All right, I can't deal with it anymore.
Yeah, he bookends it with F-bombs.
I put up a frickin' for about a minute and a half, and now I'm just going to go with full F-bombs on this dude, because he is the fucking worst.
He showed an impressive amount of restraint.
Yeah. I think the New York Times should give that guy a really long profile, honestly, with the sort of people that they've been profiling. I think that seems actually pretty representative. I think that's a pretty representative feeling in this country, actually. And I want to hear more about it.
Yeah, exactly. We're how about going into that guy's diner and figuring out what he's going to eat and then ask him about it.
You lose Jeff from Mass. It's pretty much over.
Yeah. Now, Massachusetts is not going for Trump anyways, but he's probably indicative. There's no reason why he wouldn't be. But
no one likes a freaking whiner.
Nobody likes a whiner, that's for sure. That's for shit sure. All right, folks. See you in the fun half. 646-257-3920. I will call into the system right now.
In for it.
All right, folks. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
Are you ready?
Who sent us this?
Anarchy. Alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just as delicious as you can imagine.
The alpha males are back. Boys back. And the alpha males are back.
Just want to degrade the white man.
Alpha males are back.
I take all of it in my throat.
Alpha males are back.
Almost has what?
The alpha males are back.
You are a madman.
And the alpha males are back.
I am a total cunt.
Can we bring back DJ the Anarchy song, please?
Yeah, or a couple of them. Just put them in rotation.
DJ Denner.
Well, the problem with those is they're like 45 seconds long, so I don't know if they're enough of a break.
That's fucking nonsense.
Hey, folks, reminder.
I do not have Parkinson's.
And the alpha males are
Psych. Fuck them. Fuck them. Almost says what? Almost says what? Hell of a lot of bank. 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 Hell of a lot of bank.
All lives matter.
Have you tried doing an impression on a college campus?
I think that there's no reason why reasonable people across the divide can't all agree with this. Psych.
and the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black African. And the alpha males are back. And the Africans are black.
See Donald Trump out there, doesn't a little part of you think that America deserves to be taken over by jihadists? Keeping it 100. Can't knock the hustle. Come on! Fuck 'em. Fuck things I do for the bigger game plan. By the way, it's my birthday! Happy birthday to me, Jew boy! I have a thought experiment for you.
And the alpha males are back. Africans are black. Alpha males are back. Africans are black.
Come on! Come on! Someone needs to pay the price for blasphemy around here.
I am a total pussy.
Oh, mute Sam.
So I was saying I don't have a huge swath of people that I am in regular contact with, but I do think that the people I am in contact with represent different perspectives. I mean, I do know some people who voted for Trump, last time around. Not many, but a couple. And I do know people who are range from being like, very aggressively political, and some that are, more, I guess like a leftist, and some that are more social justice warrior. And then also some that are, more liberal, but very vigorous. And to a person, I would say they are all in a similar mental state. People are exhausted. I mean, it's also the pandemic, right? I mean, that is the backdrop. It's hard to sort of like to disaggregate that, but that is also a big part of this. Everybody's been drinking too much to the extent that for those people who drink, and feeling anxious and not sleeping well. And so it's hard to communicate sort of just how sort of crazy this moment is. But I think this clip sort of captures it. It is Halloween tomorrow, as you know, and in Oregon, the Oregon Health Authority wanted to get into the spirit as they gave an update on coronavirus. And if this clip doesn't capture sort of the insanity of the moment, I'm not sure what does.
Hello, I'm Dr. Claire Pochet. I'm a general pediatrician and also a senior health advisor here at the Oregon Health Authority. I'm here with Shimi Sharif, my colleague, who's also a senior health advisor. And we thought we'd start by giving you a quick update on where we are as a state with COVID-19. As of today, there have been 38,160 cases of COVID-19 in Oregon, with 390 new cases being reported today. Sadly, we are also reporting 3 deaths today, bringing the statewide total for COVID-19 related deaths to 608.
The COVID-19 pandemic is reshaping how Oregonians celebrate holidays, and that includes Halloween. But it doesn't mean Halloween can't still be spooky and fun this year.
I mean, it was a nice sentiment. It's just, I think if you were to drop into, this era out of the past or the future and show up and see this report on COVID and coronavirus being delivered by a clown and a what looked like a squirrel or a mouse to me,
I think even in this era of like knowing coronavirus and in the midst of Halloween, I think it still would have been worthwhile for them to maybe mention up front why they're doing that. Because even with all the context we have as like non-time travelers, that's still very confusing.
And it's also the juxtaposition between saying like, there's no reason why Halloween can't be fun and scary anymore. Like I don't know.
Nothing says keep calm and carry on like a terrifying clown telling you about the spread of a deadly virus.
My God.
Even our
I'm afraid to
healthcare
show that to my
professionals
daughter.
have been
I feel like she would never go out again.
It is scarier than normal Halloween, though. That's true.
Absolutely.
Good job on that.
Yep, it's true. Let's go to the phones. What do we got here? Who's up first? Oh, here we go. Calling from a 210 area code. Who's this?
Good afternoon, Sam. This is John from San Antonio.
John from San Antonio. How are you, John?
I'm good. Good. A few weeks ago, I talked about a red mirage in states where they don't start counting early votes and mail-in ballots until the morning of the election. Now, as the election representatives become more clear about what ballots will be counted first, people are talking about a blue mirage. In North Carolina, election officials started counting mail-in and early vote ballots on October 20th. Election officials have said that results from early in-person votes and mail ballots will be counted first and will be reported at 7:30 Eastern, and Election Day votes will be counted last. According to a Pew survey conducted in late September and early October, which correlates with similar numbers from a few months earlier, 39% of expected votes are supposed to be by mail, 33 are expected to be vote on Election Day, and 21 are expected to vote early in person, with 7% undecided. But we're seeing a huge surge in in-person voting. So I question that number. And in 2016, 20% of all votes came from mail-in ballots. Will that number double, or will it be 25% more? So within that demographic, Biden has a 2-point lead nationally over Trump. So in North Carolina, 4,083,000 have already voted, and 3.2 million have voted in person. So press reports say that up to 50% of the total vote will come from the in-person early vote in North Carolina. North Carolina officials expect to have 98% of the ballots counted by election night. In Florida, they started counting ballots on October.
So wait a second,
12th.
John. So John, wait. So let me just stop you there for a second. So, we're anticipating at 7:30 when North Carolina announces their results, right? Or at least announces their first results from the counting that had for votes that had taken place either by mail or in person prior to Election Day. We're anticipating Joe Biden to be leading significantly, right? Because we think that the majority of those people who did one of those two means of voting were Democratic. Do you have a sense? I mean, I don't know. Maybe this is a fool's errand, but do you have a sense of what the number is? Can you divine a number that if Joe Biden's up by 7%, okay, that doesn't mean much, but if he's up by 30%, then he can't lose.
Yeah, I mean, we do have numbers as far as just polling on that from that same Pew survey, which is, let's see, on the mail ballot, it's basically Biden is up by 26 points. It's 51 to 25, just on absentee and mail ballot voting, and so like he's up by 2 on election day, in person before election day. Biden's up by 2, 22 to 20, and in person on election day, Trump is up by 30. 50 to 20.
Now, this is just people anticipating how they were going to vote, but a couple of weeks ago, so their plans may have changed.
Right. I mean, what I was just saying is that in certain states, we're seeing, like in Texas especially, I mean, we're seeing massive turnout. And in polling, we're seeing that like, I think it was, I'm trying to remember exactly. It's around 75% in a poll that I was looking at yesterday, say that they've already voted or they're going to vote. I mean, today's the last day to vote in person in Texas, so most of them have already voted, and so that's why the numbers are probably today they're going to actually surpass the total number from 2016.
It did already. It did already.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great. And so, but I mean, we
just don't know how we don't know how those votes are distributed, and we don't know if those are new voters or just cannibalizing. Now, obviously in Texas, there's new voters, right? Because you've already gotten past the 2016 numbers with just the early votes. But we just don't know the distribution.
Well, I mean, what we do know is that we have in North Carolina and in Florida, we do have registration, voting by registration and independent votes. So that information is up. So, like if you're looking at North Carolina, you're looking at 38% for Democrats, 31.5% for Republicans, and then 30% of the vote are independents. And in Florida, you have 7.8 million have already voted. 3.4 have voted in person, and that number is Democrats have 40% of the vote, Republicans have 37.9, and then 20.7 are independents. So, I mean, it's hard to know who's actually. I mean, the 10-point lead in North Carolina looks pretty good, but you have to also realize that Trump's supposedly going to win by 30 points on election day.
Right.
So, I mean, you can interpret it a lot of different ways. A lot of it's going to be determined also by, how independents swing. And also, I mean, I think that with the negative SIM partisanship, you're going to get very few people voting against their party. I mean, less than 5%, in that happening. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it is very hard to tell, but I mean, Democrats do have leads in these states.
But like you started off by saying, John, blue mirage. So we don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's going to be that much of a mirage if they, if most of the votes are if 67% of the votes, let's say, are already going to be counted, and those are going to be like it's 6:30, 67% of the votes are in.
But the problem is, John, is that this year, these different cohorts of voters, early voters, mail-in voters, day of voters, has become so politicized. Like it's become such a partisan, it's a function of partisanship, whereas it used to be just like a function of fairly, everybody was doing it either because it was convenient or they're going to be out of town. This seems to be highly sort of like partisan in some way, right? Like what their voting patterns are. So we don't really know. So we could have 68% of the people voting before the election We may know the, I guess the breakdown of votes. We don't know exactly how the independents are voting, right? And then we don't know,
Well, I mean, you have polling. You have polling which say independents are breaking for Democrats by small numbers in swing states. Yes, I mean.
And so then you just don't know
polling
how
could
many
be
people
wrong.
are going to show up day of.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's still a lot of unknowns, but I mean, you also have, I mean, Biden has leads that are pretty incredible. I mean, so the polling error would have to be much larger than the polling error
In
in
2016,
2016.
yeah.
I mean, much larger.
And the other thing that I've been seeing quite a bit is that the trends in 2016 at this time, Clinton was going like this and Trump was going like this, and it was right at there. That's where we ended up on voting day. But that with Biden and Trump, it just seems to be basically static.
Yeah, it's static, but there's still 7 states that are extremely close. I mean, like I'm kind of just really, I don't know who's going to win these states. I mean, we're 3 days from the election, and I don't know who's going to win Florida. I mean, of course, I don't know who's going to win Pennsylvania for sure. But I mean, he's up consistently by five points, and that, I mean, the polling error. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that Trump only had to win one of the blue wall states. He didn't have to win all 3 of them. He only had to win one. So the polling error essentially, if you go by my numbers, it was just a 2.8% polling error, along with Florida, which was less than a point, and North Carolina, which was less than a point. And so this year, it's very likely that Trump is going to have to win North Carolina, where he's down, by 1.6, Arizona, where he's down by 3.6, and Florida, while he's down by 2.1, and Pennsylvania, where he's down by 5.2. So, I mean,
all right, John, let's
go
ahead.
Plus, he has to win all the 4, wish list states, is what I call them. And he's down in Georgia. He's down in Iowa. I mean, by incredibly small numbers, but he is down. And he's in Texas and in Ohio are within 2 points. And so, I mean,
what's going to happen in Texas? Come on, what's going to happen in Texas?
Right now, I think it's still going to be hard for Biden to win. But I mean, he's down by 2 points. I mean, it's so close. I mean, it's a 60-40 split right now for Trump. I mean, some of the better polls are saying that Trump will win, and I mean, you have all the fundamentals, are still saying that he'll still win. But I mean, 2 points. I mean, that's margin of error race, and so. I mean, so what I'm saying is, you look at all the top forecasters, they're saying it's a 90% chance is what the average is coming. And so like me, when I said it was 75 on Monday, I kind of, I think things have moved up a little bit since then, and it's just going to be, like I said, the polling error would just have to be so large. And with the lack of undecided voters,
right.
Unlike 2016, I just think it'll be next to impossible.
That to me is big. That is the other big thing is that when we talk about Biden being up in these polls, the important part is, in my mind, is that it's not just that he's up; it's that he's clearing 50%. And I just think that we're not going to get a lot of movement if people have already decided that if they decided by this point, if 50% of the people, or 50.01%, have decided that they're voting for Biden, I think that they're going to vote for Biden. I don't think that I don't get the sense that people are deciding on who to vote for and then switching up in this time around. They may be still undecided, but those people, that's why, if he's already at 50% plus. But John, I know we're going to talk to you a lot on Tuesday. And so let's keep a little bit of that powder dry, shall we?
All right. Sounds good.
Bye-bye.
All right. Take care, Sam.
Bye-bye. All right, let's read some of these IMs, and then we'll get into this. What's going on in Fox here for a second. Can you guys get Glenn Greenwald on the show soon? According to Twitter, he has to keep going on Tucker Carlson to be useful idiot for fascism because no left of center shows will provide him a platform. He's got a bigger platform than we do. I would imagine his shows do better. His own show.
He's been on the show too.
Yes, of course. If I want to find out more about what's going on with Hunter Biden at this point, then
only cool things.
Anarcho PMC. The clerk at the bodega gave me props for my Majority Report hoodie yesterday. He said he's never watched, but has heard good things. I said, it's great. And he said it must be for me to have bought a hoodie. Well, good for you, Anarcho PMC. Ron Keogh. Sam, any thoughts on Kyle Kalinske teaming with Joe Rogan for election coverage on Tuesday? I didn't realize, but I would imagine a lot of people are going to watch. Gregory, nice Purdue pun. Thank you. Jen from St. Louis, the stress eating is very real. Yes. Sam, Massachusetts. Sam, I'm making myself, if Trump wins, psychological prep list just in case the trauma of 2016 blindside I can't go through again. Any suggestions how we can prepare ourselves for that nightmare? Yeah, I probably like drinking. DSA Golfers Caucus. Got a membership just to send a message to Matt and Jamie as the founding member of the DSA Golfers Caucus. Hands off our golf courses or we will not excuse the terror. There you go.
They're not your golf courses. When they are, maybe we will.
Yeah, the golf courses belong to everyone. Sorry.
Gregory, get your Trump nose torqued today. Meximarine feels like the election is locked up on the national minus some local or Senate seats. I don't know. Jonah from Michigan. Hey, Sam, my conservative friend offered a vote trade with me. He said he would vote for Biden if I vote for John James for Senate in Michigan. Thoughts? I would agree to it. And then, what happens in the voting booth happens in the voting booth. Smurf, I'm baffled about Glenn Greenwald drama. Your thoughts? We already talked about it. Teacher Dan, sorry about riding your ass on your naivete regarding the Democratic Party and its willful resistance to a better world. I think you've otherwise do a great job, and you've assembled an incredible crew that brings a variety of perspective, which is much more than I could say for most shows out there and far more than you could say for mainstream production. Happy Halloween. Thank you, Teacher Dan. Doctor from New Jersey. I tell my medical students to skip my bedside rounds and just follow Don Jr.'s on Instagram. Mo, my sleep has suffered recently too. I think 7 months of quarantine combined with the election has really got me effed up. Yeah, I feel you. Run PMC. Sam, if you keep censoring me by not reading my IMs, which are always hilarious and insightful, I'll be forced to resign my membership from MR. Oh, there you go. Worked. Hyper left drifter. Earlier this week, you were talking about religion in American politics. Chrissy Stoop has written a lot about authoritarian evangelicals to help me understand the culture and pretty scary stuff. Joe Need to Relax. Ari Melber's show mistitled a video he played on his show. Showed some hacky comedian with Sam Seder at 3:30 mark. Video doesn't match. What? Yeah, I was wondering about that. What the heck was that?
Was that when you went on Ari Melber and he was like, funny man, Sam Seder?
That happens occasionally. Hold on,
my dad told me about that.
Yes, he does it.
He was like really stuck on the idea that you were a comedian.
Hold on, here it is. Hold on.
Your dad or Ari Melber?
Ari Melber.
Play this, Brandon. Oh my gosh. We got to save this for Kindler too when he shows up. This is an outrage. This is an outrage. I'm not sure who should be outraged though. I mean, I'm stealing Kindler's thunder. Go to 2 minutes and 55 seconds. 2 minutes, 50 seconds. I wonder if he did this because I called Ari Berman Ari Melber the other day.
Now, 2, Trump U was a business that gave out business advice which went out of business. Embarrassing. The joke here was pretty obvious.
He's so insane, he started Trump University, but it's not even the university, it's just a
Majority Report, Sam Seder.
website. For that.
Excellent hair, son. You're on your way. Would you care to see a brochure from Trump University? The best university in the country.
It's Kindler.
This is all.
Wait, did we play that clip?
Yeah, I think that's what happened. They sourced it from us playing it when Kindler was on once, so that's why they had that on.
That was a Comedy Central show, and that was also Greg Giraldo who was on there. Who,
what show was that?
I can't remember what the name of it is, but it was like a debate show, and Greg Giraldo was a very funny guy. I actually had done a pilot with him, and he was a parent. His kid went to the same school as mine. And sadly, he died of an overdose. I guess now 6-7 years ago. But he was a funny guy, and Kindler gets screwed out of that moment. I can't believe they didn't even mention who it was. It's too bad. It was 10 years ago. Wow. Was it 10 years ago that Giraldo died? Jeez. Damn. All right, let's turn to let's turn to this. This is Fox and Friends. Fox is Fox has got some very strange ideas about what's going to impact this election and what's not going to impact this election. Now, Jamie, we were just talking about people are freaking out a little bit about the election, but it's hard to disaggregate that from the freak out about the coronavirus. We just played that clip from Jeff in Massachusetts, a Trump voter who says there's no frickin' way he's going to vote for Donald Trump this time around because frick that guy. He's, he's not taking the coronavirus seriously, has no idea what people are doing in terms of suffering because of it in one form or another.
Yeah, he touched on the economic crisis as well.
Yeah, but
we're in a triple crisis at least.
Pete Hegseth on Fox and Friends, he doesn't think it's going to mean anything.
Pete, there's something else going through the Midwest in the battleground states. The coronavirus is rising in every one of those states. How does that factor in?
I don't know that it does necessarily, because I think people's perception of COVID-19 is already baked into their lives, activity, and the vote they plan to cast.
Do you feel it there? Do you feel it there? I mean, when I know you're going back and forth.
Very much so. Listen, we're masks, businesses closed, limited hours. Some schools are going back to virtual learning. So there is some level of feeling it. But when you have a contrast between a candidate saying, I see a dark winter, I want a national mask mandate, I'm going to keep you closed, and a president who said, look at the GDP, we're going to reopen, we're going to be responsible, we've accelerated a vaccine because we want to get back to being open and optimistic in people's livelihoods. I think that contrast, even if the numbers of COVID, again, it's cases is very different than hospitalizations and deaths. I think that contrast actually helps the president who's being optimistic in this moment.
Now, Pete should check his paper again, because he'll find that the deaths and the hospitalizations are also going up. They're just a lagging indicator. So here he is saying, oh, no, we feel it. We can feel it surging. But, we like the optimism. And a lot of people would call that delusion. So in Pete Hegseth's mind, people are not going to worry about the surging coronavirus. That's not going to implicate their vote at all. But if you keep your TV on Fox long enough, you'll hear later in the day Bill Hemmer and Brett Baer talking about things that they do think will matter in the election, and this is pretty good.
I want to get to the story about Twitter today. They have apparently picked up on Mark Morgan's Twitter account, who's U.S. Customs and Border Protection Commissioner, suspended him after he sent out a tweet about the wall and border security. Now, I don't know what your sense of that is, but I guess where does it end?
Listen, I believe this could actually move some votes in these closing days. I think that the censorship issue is something that independents have a problem with, and they really fear that that is a big issue, that they're not getting, that somebody's getting shut down for something as innocuous as talking about the border wall. And so you have that issue. Then you have the Biden story issue. You have Glenn Greenwald resigning from The Intercept because he said that they wouldn't cover anything negative about Joe Biden. I do think that the story overall does resonate with people who have a problem with censorship in general.
Yeah. In what universe is there a voter going like, I've been sitting on the fence, I'm not sure where to go, but the stuff with Glenn Greenwald and The Intercept, forget it. I'm voting Trump. Like, are you serious?
As an independent voter and a reader of The Intercept, I want a president who will do something about this injustice.
Exactly. I want more presidential authority on whether the founder of my favorite, magazine that would report on the national security state. I want them to have the authority to force them not to edit him. And plus, this whole thing with that guy, Mark Stevenberg on Twitter, the fact that they shut down his account. Like, I don't even know like the name of the guy who they're talking about.
You don't know Mark Morgan? Oh my gosh, he's the martyr of our age.
I don't even go on Twitter anymore because Morgan's account's locked up. What's the point?
I assume that they cut out the part in Jeff from Mass's video where he does express some concern about Mark Morgan.
That's right, exactly. So
he has to weigh these factors very
I'm
carefully.
freaking pissed about what's going on with coronavirus, and then all of a sudden they're censoring Mark Morgan on Twitter. Like, what the frick? Are you kidding me? So I went over to Insta to see if I could pick up his account on Insta, and he doesn't even have an Insta account. So I had to go over to Facebook to see if I could find him on Facebook, and ended up I'm following him on TikTok now. So, but if he gets bumped from TikTok, forget it. I'm voting for Trump. Not gonna. You kidding me? What? Like, I just can't believe these guys say this stuff with a straight face. And those are the news guys.
Well, they have to say something.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, what they mean is like there's any number of things that like really animate people who aren't really politicized. I mean, I would name healthcare as one of those things. But of that subset, the things that the Republicans can actually speak to, it's basically like this cancel culture. You're being censored for like expressing opinions thing.
But these are really like, this isn't, I don't know, Pat Boone getting censored, or James Woods getting censored, or who's that Chuck? Who's the game show host guy?
Chuck Worley.
Chuck Worley. It's like they don't have like the. I mean, this is Glenn Greenwald, who I mean, maybe there's some Fox viewers who know who he is because of Tucker, maybe, but they're not. I mean, like, they weren't already voting for Trump. And then just like, I can't believe that. Like, I would bet it's hard to find a name that people don't recognize more than Mark Morgan. Like, that's.
I don't know. I can't believe they censored that queer who's friends with Tucker.
Exactly. That's pretty stunning stuff. All right, let's get to some calls here. Calling from a 352 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
So I recognize this frog. I think it calls into Chris James's show to prank him sometimes.
Are you serious?
So I think so.
That's it. That
Pretty
frog is
pretty great break.
So weak, so afraid.
Oh,
Why are you so
man.
afraid, Mr. Frog? Why don't you actually debate? Call from 308, Erica. Who's this?
Hey, it's Kowalski.
Kowalski.
In Nebraska. This is a very, very special call, too, because I'm actually contacting you from the past. I am calling you from exactly 1 year in the past. And I was just curious if you could give me a quick rundown on what to expect for the next 12 months.
Did you see the video that we played of the clown giving the report on the coronavirus deaths? I think that's all you need to know.
Yes, and it is very concerning. I know we're close to Halloween, so is this like a joke or?
This is not the Ken and Ken show. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to tell you that the next 12 months is going to be a little rough for you, buddy.
All right, like what happens? I mean, is it like a total catastrophe? Like, does the state catch on fire? Does the city explode? I mean, like what happens?
Yes. Call us back in a week.
Huh.
How are things?
We at least got Bernie up on deck. I
I
mean,
know.
I know he had his heart attack recently, but it looked like he was doing fine.
Yeah. Come on, Kowalski. Don't bum us out. What's happening?
Rubbing salt in the wound.
Exactly.
All right. I think the space-time continuum has fixed itself. So, yeah, any call like that would be truly depressing. And honestly, even if it were true, no one would believe you.
I know it.
But just some things I've been noticing out here is that I think by and large, a lot of the Republican senators are jumping ship on the Trump train, or jumping the train. Bad metaphor, regardless. But there was a recent little scuff between Sass and the president where Trump called Sass a liability to the party and an embarrassment to the state, which both true, hilarious, and deserving. So
wait a second. Trump said this?
Yeah, Trump said Sass was, because Sass has,
oh, right. Okay. Right.
might
Yes.
either work with the Lincoln Project or the
Well, there was that leak where Sass, purposely put out a leak that he criticized the president 2 weeks before an election he thinks the president's going to lose.
Yeah. So that's pretty funny, but
profile and courage.
A few concerning things is that I would say that if anything, any type of marginal voters is probably going to go towards Biden, because there's been a few deaths just locally in the area that has either turned people off from voting for Trump because they now understand the seriousness of it. Who would have thought it would take your own dad to die to make you question things? But it just recently happened to a neighbor. So, yeah. And that's becoming a little more widespread. The hospitals are about to reach capacity. My sister-in-law is going nuts. I think we're going to be in for a very, very dark winter. But at least we've got you guys to brighten our day.
Yeah. We'll do our best.
You're a ray of sunshine in the darkness, the hope in the distance, the city on the hill we all strive for. So
well,
I just want you to know that we all believe in you.
Thanks, Kowalski. We needed that pressure. I'll tell you, I feel like I'm going to pass out right now, but thank you. Appreciate the call.
Not like those people in Omaha who passed out from the freezing temperatures. You've never left us in the cold.
That I would never do. If I ever have you come out anywhere in the cold, I'll make sure you have a ride home. Appreciate the call, Kowalski. Calling from a 740 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Hello.
Hi, my name's Casey. I'm calling from D.C.
Casey from D.C. What's on your mind, Casey?
So I'm kind of wondering why the left doesn't talk more about Sherrod Brown, senator out of Ohio. He's maybe not the most progressive guy in the Senate, but if you look at senators and their positions kind of relative to where the middle of their state is, he's far more progressive than the rest of Ohio as a state. He really seems to focus on talking about workers, unions, jobs. And just I kind of wonder why we aren't looking at him as more of a model for how we can start winning, red states or leaning red states.
Well, I mean, I don't know that people aren't doing that to a certain extent, but why doesn't the National Party do that? I mean, it's a good question. I mean, maybe a guy like Sherrod Brown is, somebody who could win in. Well, I mean, I guess to a certain extent, they're like maybe in, I don't know, maybe in the Dakotas, but probably not. I mean, Ohio also, he got in there, he's been in there
He's
for
been
a
there
while.
forever. Yeah.
And he's been there since prior to it being a red state, when it was more of a swing state. And but it like what state are you thinking of though specifically? Like maybe I guess a Pennsylvania.
Well, and West Virginia, so I'm thinking about like
But
the kind of
Richard
field towns,
Ojeda
coal
tried
towns,
that in West Virginia, right? Richard Ojeda. That's exactly what he was going for in West Virginia. I don't think it's happening in West Virginia. It's just West Virginia is just too the cultural ballast there. Richard Ojeda. I mean that is exactly the guy that you're talking about, and he did not do well.
Well, to be fair, the centrists don't do well there either. So,
well, Manchin has been in there, and Manchin literally had to take a AR-15, had an ad where he had the cap and trade, and he put the cap and trade bill, stack of papers like this, put it on a rock, walked 20 yards back, took his AR-15 and shot it up.
yeah, see, that's Republican shit. Like, I don't even think of him as a centrist liberal. He's like to the right of that.
Well, I mean, so there you go. I mean, that's that. I mean,
I think there's value to running, though, like basically the idea that you'll need to run a number of these campaigns. I mean, look at Ossoff, right? Like, I mean, he's not my politics, but I think you need to basically run a few times with certain politics. And like the first time, don't expect much, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah. And centrist liberals are different in a variety of ways from Republicans. So I don't think that Manchin is a very good example. Like,
well, but Richard Ojeda is exactly the type of candidate that I mean, if you were going to use Sherrod Brown as the model, you go with Richard Ojeda.
Yeah, but I'm saying if Democrats are going to lose for a while, no matter what, I think it would be better to build a more working class base and politics for future runs, so that maybe when things swing their way, we'll have a good progressive in there at the very least.
No, I mean, I think there is value in the way that you lose in these states, and I do think there should be a 50 state, a 50 state strategy. But it is unlikely that you're going to see the national groups pour money into a race that they know they're going to lose. But I think
they did it with Amy McGrath.
Huh?
Didn't they do that with Amy McGrath?
I think that Schumer did, yeah, and it was heavily criticized. I definitely think that they did. And I think it's also just sort of like performative in some level there because of McConnell. But yes, I think that's a waste, and they were, but you can't. We were just talking about the value of losing and building. I just think that it's possible. It's possible. I mean, but I do think that Sherrod Brown probably needs more attention. But what happens inevitably is that, there are votes that he takes that are compromise votes because he's in Ohio. And I think to a certain extent, people, pile on and criticize the left does in those situations. I can't think of the votes off the top of my head, but I know there's a couple.
He confirmed some people, I remember. But I mean, and that's the thing with Sherrod Brown is like Michael talked a lot about Sherrod Brown towards the end as a model specifically. But the problem is like a model isn't what we need. Like from the past who won in a different generation. We need somebody who actually has these politics that can win, that actually wins a race in a red district that can serve as the model. Because Sherrod Brown, it's not from our time, so it's not going to work like you want it to.
Appreciate the call.
We really should get the Trillbillies on to talk about progressive potential of red states, because they know a lot about this.
We should do that. We may do that for a long time, actually. Calling from a 314 area code. Who's this?
Howdy, howdy. This is Cameron from St. Louis.
Cameron from St. Louis. What's on your mind, Cameron?
I just wanted to talk a bit about redistricting, particularly in the state of Missouri, because right now there is Amendment 3 that is on the statewide ballot, where in Missouri, the 2018 elections for the House, the state House, Republicans got, excuse me, I believe 57% of the vote and received 71% of the seats in the House. So also in 2018, there was a Amendment 1, to deal with redistricting and lobbying and such, that passed by 62%, which focused on minimizing the amount of wasted votes and trying to lower the efficiency gap, a method used to calculate gerrymandering.
Yeah.
And to get it a bit more fair, between 2012 and 2018, Republicans for all of the statewide races received a total of 51%. Democrats received 49%. And yet for about the entire time, Republicans have held a supermajority within the House, Senate, within the state Senate, along with the state House. And right now on the statewide ballot, there is Amendment 3 passed to go into the ballot by Republicans in the state Senate and state House in order to change the redistricting laws back to what they were prior to 2018. And sorry, this is my first time calling.
That's okay. Go ahead.
There has been some concern based off of the wording, particularly from local government officials who expect significant decreases in revenue because the wording is one person, one vote. But there are some people who suspect that may mean that non-voters will not be counted when drawing out districts.
Yeah, that's I mean, this is all going to be, these are all going to be court cases that we're going to figure out. And that's one of the concerns. Like, I think, I don't know who it was that we talked to maybe the past week when they were talking about the assaults on voting rights. One of them is going to be how redistricting follows, whether, I mean, it's supposed to be per person, but with these courts, it's a good point. We'll see. I appreciate the call though. Thanks, man.
Just one final thing. It looks like from what little polling I could find, 50% plan on voting no, and only 28 plan on voting yes. And it's more seems like an attempt to trick people into overturning what was only already voted for in 2018.
Interesting.
So,
all right. Appreciate the call.
You have a good one.
You too. Calling from a 666 area code. Oh, no, wait a second.
Hello?
Yeah. Who's this? Where are you calling from? From abroad.
From down below?
Oh, is that me?
Yeah.
Oh crap. Oh,
Crap.
sorry. Hey, I'm Mike from. I'm originally from Omaha, Nebraska, but I'm in Thailand. It would really give me a 666 area code. That's so metal.
Yeah, there you
Hell
go.
yeah.
Mike
Be
from
honest,
Thailand
you're calling from
and
hell.
Nebraska.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm so glad I got to call up today because you actually mentioned Paul Weyrich earlier. Have you ever heard of? Do you know who William Lind is and the Frankfurt School conspiracy theory?
No,
No, you've never heard of him?
I don't
Okay,
think so.
so William Lind was a guy he was a good friend of Paul Weyrich's, and in the mid to late 90s, he started popularizing this theory about this place, the Frankfurt School, and this group of Jewish philosophers that had come over to America and were planning on destroying the country and Western values through this idea of cultural Marxism and critical theory and political correctness. That if you look at the stuff that he wrote, him and all the other people who said this, they're saying exactly what Republicans are saying right now, except the only difference is that these people like William Lind directly said, "Oh, it's the Jews. Jews are doing this. It's something called Judeo-Bolshevism. This idea that Jews are bringing over Marxism and in order to destabilize the country and topple it all." So I found this out a while ago, and I looked in, and it's like people like Steve Bannon was a big fan of him. Andrew Breitbart was. You hear it with Ben Shapiro, and I mean everybody. Dave Rubin, Brett Weinstein have all tweeted about cultural Marxism and stuff. And you remember Trump's July 4th speech at Mount Rushmore was all about that liberal fascism that wants to tear down statues and declare everybody racist and sexist. This is all language taken directly from this conspiracy theory. And William Lind actually met Donald Trump back in 2016 and gave him a copy of this book called The Next Conservatism that he wrote with Paul Weyrich. And in this book, he talks about how the best way to fight cultural Marxism is through this union of local militias and police.
There you have it.
I've been asking. Sorry?
There you have it.
You think Trump read a book, though?
But people around him probably just, read it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, William Lind, he's a pretty well-connected guy. Like like I said, he was real good friends with Paul Weyrich and Joseph Kors and all those guys. He shows up he was at the Angel Mencken conference that I don't know if you remember Darren Betty, who was a Trump speechwriter, got booted out of the White House because they found out he went to this anti-Semitic conference called about the H.L. Mencken Club. Well, William Lind was at that conference as well, and he was also talking. So
well,
I asked Trump supporters about this. I asked them, I show them this, and a couple of them, the ones that I've been able to talk to the most, have been like, the whole thing, it's like the whole thing stinks. And so I've gotten a couple people to leave the Republican Party and stop. They said, I'm not going to associate with this anymore.
Oh, that's good.
But most of them, it's either I get two responses. I get either this is just a theory that came out of nowhere with no identifiable leaders or influence from anybody, or a bunch of Jews came up with it and spread it around, but that's just a coincidence.
Yep. Well, we got to keep busy. Appreciate the call.
Right.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
I am surprised that this theory still has legs at all whatsoever after the total bodying that Zizek delivered to our friend Jordan Peterson over it.
I mean, I don't know that people's allegiance to these type of things are necessarily intellectual. Do you know what I mean?
Fair enough.
I bet you some got dislodged, but
she's not Marxism. Sorry, I can't do a good Zizek.
Yeah, they moved on to critical race theory.
Calling from a 530 area code. Who's this? Where you calling from? Got to be quick. We're going to try and get through some more calls.
Oh gosh, is this me?
It is you.
Hi, Sam. I'm Brooke from Sacramento.
Hi, Brooke from Sacramento. What's on your mind today, Brooke?
So I am new to leftism in part thanks to you guys. By the way, I want to thank you for doing such an incredible job on your show.
Oh, well, thank you.
As usual.
You get one of those.
And as a person who's new to leftism, I've fortunately been able to make like some leftist friends, and I'm kind of surprised by how divisive we can even be amongst each other.
Oh,
if
yes.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
Particularly,
Get used to it.
In fact, that is
this question probably would have been more appropriate maybe like a month ago, but I have been getting into some arguments with friends about the whole, do you vote for Joe Biden or do you vote for Bernie Sanders debate, like do a write-in? And I'm voting
Bernie.
Joe Biden, but I have leftist friends who are militant against me in that decision. And especially with Jamie present, I was just kind of hoping if I could get your guys' input and thoughts on that debate.
Well, I mean, Matt just made a good point. You can ask Bernie what he thinks you should
Exactly. Exactly.
Simple. It's not. Oh my God, I'm afraid to even say anything about this because I feel like we're just gonna fight for like half an hour.
Come on, Jamie. I want your input.
Oh, you think so? Really?
Cancel culture.
All right.
This is cancel culture.
I mean, no, look, we don't have to do what Bernie says just because we liked him and voted for him in the primary.
But why would you vote for him?
That said, he's not on the ballot, and writing in Bernie isn't going to do anything. So, I mean, I've been struggling with this myself because I live in a blue state and I don't have to vote for Joe Biden. So I'm probably not going to. So am I just not going to vote for president at all? That would probably be the most rational thing. But like if I do a protest vote, that doesn't really matter. Like if it comes like a personal expression, if I write in Bernie, that doesn't really matter. So like, yeah, I'd say for what it's worth, vote Biden in a swing state.
This was the best way to interpret what
Chomsky.
I was just going to say, this is the best way to interpret what Chomsky was saying when voting. He said voting takes 10 minutes, which of course we know there's all these obstacles, but the actual decision, people are overthinking it. Like this is not where we're going to actually win the game. And people are simply overthinking voting about this stuff.
Right.
I don't think it's that important. Honestly, I don't think it's that important at all. And I think the benefits of voting for Joe Biden are far from proven, but just based on the fact that it might have some benefits, I say it's worth doing. But also, I think other stuff is way more important.
I don't think that from I've said that I voted for Biden on the WFP line this year in New York, which generally in the swing state, I'm not terribly compelled to vote for the top of the ticket because I generally I'm not terribly thrilled about it. But I do think this year, we keep saying over and over again, every time I talk to somebody about the election, it's he's got to win big to push back. And I do think, these courts are political entities, and therefore the question of, the stability of the country comes into play. And if I do think that there's, I would imagine, or let me put it this way, there is based upon the cost associated with voting for Biden for me, which is, really nothing except for maybe my own discomfort or whatever feelings about myself. There is a tiny marginal chance, I mean, infinitesimal, you need a microscope, but nevertheless it exists, that if he gets 10 million votes as opposed to 1 million votes more than Donald Trump, it's going to weigh on any type of decision a judge might make that might be crucial. But I do think there's also value in saying, like, people don't have to listen to Bernie Sanders, but what's the point? Why, what was the point of people voting for Bernie Sanders? It was,
right.
I think there's, I don't think Bernie Sanders was going to do everything that Jamie wanted him to, but the idea was that Right. I mean, but so the idea of a marginal difference between two candidates had relevance in that instance.
Yeah.
And
there
so
was, there was
if
also
it has,
an argument
if
to
it
be
has,
made.
if it has, if a marginal difference has relevance in a decision between Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, or Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, or Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris, then you can apply the same idea that I think it's, look, there's a lot of things that Joe Biden might be indistinguishable to Donald Trump, but there's a lot of things where he is distinguishable. There's just no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
And even if you don't even have the nuance to contemplate, like, who gets into the room, or the room off the side of the room, or the room off the side of the room with Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, there is some things that are distinguishable. And so if you could vote for Bernie Sanders because he's marginally better than somebody in the Democratic primary field, you should use that same mode of thought when it comes to Biden, and that's it.
Absolutely.
But
that's kind of
Sorry,
that's
Sam,
kind
I
of the
didn't mean to
same
interrupt.
logic that I've used as sort of a ultra leftist. That's a joke, by the way. Who was never that sold on the other reasons that socialists had for supporting the Bernie campaign, which was not, according to them, not just because he was more progressive than Joe Biden and would create some liberal reforms, but because this campaign could be used to build a working class movement and a socialist movement, which would eventually overthrow the system itself. That was the idea behind it for a lot of DSA for Bernie types. And there was an argument to be made. I'm still I was always skeptical. I was agnostic about it, but I thought it was worth a shot. But yeah, that reason does not exist with Joe Biden. But what Sam is saying certainly does. And it's really the only one I've ever found super convincing.
I don't know. I mean, I think that argument is, I could even make that argument too, that you'd have a better shot of that. Like, I don't think that Joe Biden will have a core of federal police who are pulling people off the streets in unmarked vans. Now,
I mean, Joe Biden is complicit. You want to talk about the police? He is so complicit in mass incarceration.
I'm talking about like in terms
austerity.
Of like
people who were affected by that are still mad about it, and I can see where they're coming from if they're like, I don't want to vote for this.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about the point of whether there's a greater opportunity to build a movement that will ultimately overthrow the government. I think that it's, I mean,
honestly, I think it's about the same. But I guess the good news is we're not giving up, regardless.
Was that good for you?
That was incredible. And two things before I go, because I know you're short on time. I recently bought Michael Brooks's book, Against the Web. I called in on his memory show, and I was just like everyone else. I was bawling my eyes out. So I wanted to offer my condolences now that I finally get to. And I also persuaded my boyfriend to buy his book. So we are both thoroughly enjoying it.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and I wanted to thank you guys for taking the call and for doing such an amazing job on the show. And I think I would, if I could, I would echo Kowalski's statement. You guys are the shining light at the end of the tunnel that we're all using to get through right now.
All right, well.
I feel like this is the light. Have you guys seen the movie The Lighthouse?
Yeah. No, I haven't. Appreciate the call. Oh, is that the one with the fog? Thank you. Was that the one with the fog, the lighthouse?
Yeah, the black and white one.
I've been told that I'm not drunk enough to watch that movie.
It's a great movie.
Calling from a 954 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Sammy. Michael from Miami.
Michael from Miami. How are you, Michael?
Good, guys. Good. Happy Halloween, everybody. It's funny. You were right. That was an April Fool's thing when you did the Ken and Ken show initially. The old spilling the cola on the motherboard. That was
Yes.
funny.
Yes, the classic spilling the soda on the motherboard trick.
Best. Guys are right, man. You guys are a breath of fresh air. Now, I don't agree with everything everybody says, but that's why we love you. It's why you have a wide circle of friends.
Oh, thank you, Michael.
Drinking, yeah, lots of drinking this weekend. I wish I could tell you better stuff from this state, but having lived here for over 20 years, worked in politics, observed it for longer than that, I can tell you that I don't think you're going to get a happy result Tuesday night. Now, it's possible that the
From
exit
Florida
for a change will actually sustain the popular vote, but unfortunately my state has shown a natural proclivity for a lot of white people to lie, and especially in the suburbs where people are deep down, quite frankly, racists, and they don't really want to admit it. And so they will lie to pollsters, or they just won't tell them, or they just won't show. I know that Monmouth and a couple of other polls have changed their modeling in order to try to take into account the voters that they missed in 2016 on a statewide basis. I don't think it's going to make a difference. I think that it's going to be just like it is in every other election in the last 15 years, and that is Trump will win it 50-49 or 49-48 or something of that nature. Dade County is really where it's happened, too. I think you've seen the stories where the Democratic Party is, Sammy, they couldn't find their ass with 2 flashlights and 7 hands.
Yeah, there was a story out today about people are freaking out about what's going on down there in terms of like getting out the vote
They're pathetic.
Yeah.
They're awful. They don't even have a county chairman who knows how to identify the precincts and the areas where the Democratic Party stronghold people live. They have no ground game. Zero. Zippity-doo-dah.
That to me feels like a massive failure by Tom Perez. Just a massive failure.
He's part of it. He's part of it. This is endemic. This goes back years. I mean, don't forget 2 years ago, my state was, look, as much as I might have liked Andrew Gillum as a gubernatorial candidate, to nominate a bisexual meth addict who was closeted at that point in time and an African-American to boot, in this state at this time was the height of stupidity. You lost to a guy who ran as a commercial, his kid in a onesie. That was the sum total of this guy's political acumen.
Well, but do people know that Gillum had those issues? That
came out later.
That came out after the fact.
What? No, true. No, you're right. You guys are right about that. But I have a feeling that the vetting and the idea of nominating, I'm sorry, we still live in a state where 50% of us consider themselves South Georgians, okay, or South Alabamians. That's just a fact of life. You're not going to do that. And I'll give you a name to keep an eye on in the future for the governor's race in 22. I know we're way ahead of our skis on this, but his name is Buddy Dyer, and he's a mayor out of Orlando. Now, he's not your type of Democrat, and probably certainly not everybody else's cup of tea on the panel over there, but he's a guy that can win. And right now, I'm interested in winning. I'm interested in trying to get the legislature back from those right-wing lunatics who want to sit there and outlaw everything from abortion to your ability to say something to your child. It's obscene. The state is 4-3 Democrats in terms of registration, and yet we don't hold one statewide office apart from the agriculture secretary, and she won by 10/1000th of a point. It's the Democratic Party in the state is beyond pathetic. I mean, Obama won because he had an enormously different coalition. I still owe you the grapefruits. They are on their way, I promise.
Thank you.
But every other politician that's run statewide of any consequence has lost. And it's not going to change on Tuesday. I look at the numbers. I agree with Cornel West's analysis. 50% plus 1 is the magic number, but I just too many white people.
But I mean, you speak as if this was that Gillum lost by a massive amount. He lost by 20,000 votes, right? I mean, out of like
no, it was a little bit more than that. That was Nelson that lost like 10 to 12. No, he lost by about 40 to 50.
50,000. But he's still talking about 8 million votes, right?
Right. But okay, just for the sake of argument, had they nominated Gwen Graham, who was Bob Graham's daughter and a popular, although albeit backbencher congressperson, representative from North Florida, she wins the state, even though she's a female and there's a lot of misogyny and misogynistic tendencies in this state. Of course, she wins the state. I'm sorry to say this, and I know it's not akin to what happened with Stacey Abrams against what's his name in Georgia, Brian Kemp. Thank you. There were no precincts that were closed. There were no, magic buses that didn't deliver voters to the polls. They lost because they didn't want to vote for an African American. If they don't do that, they win the state. That's a fact. And unfortunately, it's not a fact which flies on the west side of Manhattan or the west side of Los Angeles all the time, but different jurisdictions demand different political proclivities. It's just a fact of life. I don't like it, but I'm sick and tired of living in a state where everything's backwards. We're not all backwards down here. We actually wear pants and shoes. It's absurd. But
everybody does.
That's arguable, of course. But I know I'm venting here.
Obama won the state, right?
I've seen this happen time and again.
Obama won the state.
The Obama coalition was unique. He was unique. And I think you and Michael, God rest his soul, basically said that his ability to draw personnel was such that he had no coattails. His campaign and his voters were a unique platform of people who would not be seen again. He didn't pull anybody in 10. He didn't pull anybody in 14. In fact, we got our ass kicked, significantly. So, and that just wasn't in my state. Take a look at the state legislatures around the country. His coalition was unique to him. And I give him all the credit in the world, but he was not, and even on the fundraising ability, he didn't raise money for other candidates.
Yep.
You know the story behind him hanging on to the money for himself.
Yep.
He didn't share that wealth.
Nope.
He's a great retail politician. He's a superb public speaker. He was a crappy representative and didn't know how to handle himself in terms of being able to negotiate with these guys. But I'm just telling
Michael,
you now, guys, I hope to God I'm wrong.
I do too.
But
should we do another? Should we do a double or nothing on the grapefruits? I
man. I want to pay you off. Of
all right,
course.
double or nothing.
I have to send it to a different address, though, right?
2 boxes.
Listen, I really
2 boxes.
I really like it when you have Dave Weigel on. I think he's a good voice to listen to. I love it when you have Ari on.
Don't change the subject. Listen to me, Michael.
Yes, sir.
If Biden wins Florida, 2 boxes. You go down to Bloods or whatever it is down there, and you get me 2 boxes of grapefruits. Not from California, from Florida. From Florida.
No, it was a slight,
Appreciate the call.
Yeah. The rest of us like grapefruit too,
That's what I'm saying. Get 2 boxes. They'll bring it in. You sent me California grapefruits. Real want California grapefruits from somebody from Florida. I can get California grapefruits at the freaking price. What do you call it? The key food. I don't need to.
That's food distribution under capitalism.
Going to send it from Florida. Here is this is supposed to be pretty funny, isn't it? The Connor O'Malley thing. Here is
only one way to find out, I suppose.
Did he do this for the Lincoln Project?
Let's say he did, yes.
Yeah, I mean, he did it for the Lincoln.
Okay.
He decided.
All right, here it is. This is comedian Connor O'Malley. Let's check this out.
We here at the Lincoln Project, along with the help of the concerned citizens and investment banks of the Let's Be Friends Super PAC, decided to bring together a group of radical centrists to strategize how we can fight back and bring dignity back into politics.
My name is Patrick Raspberry. I am a senior content manager. I work for a company called Black Spirit Media. And the Lincoln Project hired us to come up with some strategies for the Democrats for the 2020 election. How many people here by a raise of hands are familiar with QAnon?
Unbelievable.
The problem with QAnon is you can't fact check fantasy. So we decided, what if we fought fire with fire?
Yes.
What if the Democratic Party created their own version of QAnon that people can become invested in? A new thing called Demonon, which is a Democratic version of QAnon, which will be a cinematic Democratic universe for people to get totally invested in. You know, in QAnon, they believe that there is a person named Q who is posting these Q drops on these message boards with secret information. So in the Demonon universe, there is a person named Demonon. Demonon is posting Dem drops on Deborah Messing's Instagram comments about, that Trump and all of his friends, Mitch McConnell and certain PGA golfers are eating elderly people to gain their wisdom. Have you guys seen the Bruce Willis film Surrogates?
Yeah, a long time ago.
So in the Demonon universe, what we will say is that actually in 2018, Joe Biden died. He passed away from eating 15 hot dogs at Six Flags. And they created like a surrogate version of Joe Biden for John Kasich to operate. So John Kasich wanted to run as a Democrat, but he wasn't allowed to.
No, I'm just curious listening when you describe that whole thing. Do you have a specific target audience?
We're targeting younger people and middle-aged people who are living in despair. So people who are unemployed or, maybe have addiction problems, instead of, saying like, oh, you can get universal health care or something like that, we'll just say, here's this, fun little game for you guys to believe in. How you guys feel about that?
I don't like the idea.
I don't think I can relate to that.
It's just lunacy.
I was working on Wendy's last week, so.
That's pretty good.
Oh,
That's
man.
pretty good.
It's almost too real for me to laugh at.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Borat in that way, kind of, actually. Just present reality in a stylized way.
It's better than Borat, I think, because Borat, as much as I enjoyed getting high and watching it, had some real Resistance vibes towards the end.
Definitely.
Calling from a 408 area code. Who's this? Where you calling from?
Is this me?
Yep.
Hey, Sam. Nice talking to you. Haven't been trying to call for weeks. Just wondering what you thought of, I'm pretty 100% sure that Trump's going to win, just to keep my sanity when he does, if he does win. But we take the Senate, get more in the House. What can Trump do at that point? Just your thoughts, and maybe, if Biden does take it, uncapping the House so it actually represents, the population like it was intended to.
I'm sorry. What was the uncapping the House?
Yeah, because the House is artificially capped back in the 20s, so we only have.
I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying. Okay. I'm sorry. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Justin from Santa Clara.
So, if the Democrats take the Senate and the House, I mean, Trump can't do. I mean, he can do a lot in terms of immigration and whatnot. But I would imagine, you would see maybe more impeachment hearings. Maybe they try and go for another bite at the impeachment apple, or maybe they try and make a deal with him. I don't know. I think that's unlikely that you're going to get the Senate to flip that many seats without defeating Donald Trump. But I understand why, from a psychological perspective, you want to protect yourself. If Biden wins, I don't think they're going to expand the size of Congress, but I do think you will see DC statehood. And I do think that they will maybe, Puerto Rico might do a referendum, and they would abide by the results of that referendum. I do think you're going to see maybe the filibuster go away, and I think there's a 40% chance that the court's expanded, but I think that's going to take probably they're going to have to win the Senate in 2022, keep the Senate for that to happen. I don't think they're going to do that in the first 2 years. So that's what I would say to expect.
Sorry.
That's what I'd say to expect.
Awesome. Thank you, Sam, and the team there. You guys are great. You're listening to you every day, and I've been a subscriber for about 6 months. And
thank you.
Love you guys. So
Appreciate the call.
have a great weekend.
See you on Tuesday.
I feel like there's a lot of mutual aid going on in the calls today with everyone preparing each other for Tuesday and being like, hey, we got each other's backs here.
Oh my God.
Yep. Let's take one more call. Calling from 847 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Josh from Chicago.
Josh from Chicago. What's happening, Josh?
First off, I just want to say I want to talk about Corbyn.
being suspended from the Labor Party, but I did also want to say I've been doing a lot of phone banking for Rashida Tlaib lately in the last week, and would highly recommend leftists who hate Biden to phone bank for Rashida Tlaib. It's a safe space to hate Biden and also get people to vote out Trump.
There you go.
So, and they've been doing some great work. But yeah, I really, I know, I don't know if this has been covered on the show, but yesterday Jeremy Corbyn was suspended from the Labor Party by Keir Starmer.
Yep.
Who's the leader. And I mean, he's basically reading, there was a report put out about anti-Semitism that was basically sort of just a reflection on what had happened in the previous reports on anti-Semitism, basically.
This is by the European,
HRC.
Hate Commission or something. Yes.
Yeah. And like, I don't think the report actually portrays Corbyn in a negative light, because it basically says that, the complaints process was fucked up until Corbyn took it over himself or installed a new person in 2018. But, I think he was a bit defensive, but in his response, where he sort of, defended himself a bit. But I think this is disastrous for Labor to suspend him for that. They suspended him right away after that. And, besides being anti-democratic, it's also it splits the Labor Party in two.
Yep.
And allows them to be completely ununited going into, if there's a snap election soon or if there's an election in 2024, they're really screwed right now. And I think it also shows that, we've been more successful on the left here in terms of, making sure that people like Ilhan Omar and other people haven't faced the same sort of disciplinary process that Corbyn has. But
there's less that the Democratic Party can do.
It's not the.
they can't kick Ilhan Omar out of their caucus.
It's not analogous, but and frankly, they tried, right?
They tried.
In 2018, that was Nancy
they stepped
Pelosi
all over
over their own HR1, their big rollout of voting rights and a whole suite of reforms, and they stepped all over it because they were, Nancy Pelosi was basically, if not herself explicitly attacking Omar, certainly opened the door to it.
Generally,
staffs were.
Yeah. I think obviously, this was the this opportunity in that letter that Corbyn wrote, and I agree with you. I think that he, maybe he could have been a little bit less confrontational, but it was obviously a pretext, right, to have this fight, which I agree with you. I think it's just super ill-timed. I don't know enough about the sort of intra-party politics to know exactly why they would have this fight now, but it seems like this is a nail in the coffin of a well, maybe not coffin, but it's a nail in I don't know.
It looks like Starmer's trying to drive out the Corbynites who took a lot of power over in the party, and he might be really successful in doing it with this.
And
they already kneecapped their own election to get rid of Corbyn. We talk about the Democrats losing on purpose. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. Labor actually did do that.
Yeah, there was a fifth column in Labor.
Tried.
All right, we got to wrap up. Don't forget today on Nomi's show, Feminism for the 99% with Titha Bhattacharya. Did I pronounce that right?
Teethy.
You
got the hard part right.
Yeah, I don't know why I can say that, but I can't say Nomiki. All right, let me take some IMs, then we'll get out of here and try and rest up for next week. Jay Chivone, never mind Emma Vigland, the sleepy-eyed guy from Woburn speaks for all of us. On the election show, will you let John from San Antonio zoom into the show? Maybe you can provide visuals in the Steve Kornacki podcast. Maybe. Winnipeg, Craig, Sam, an update from Manitoba. We were averaging like single-digit numbers of new cases from May to July. It spiked massively in October. ICUs are full. Oy. Yesterday, we had a new record, 193 cases. Today, they announced 480 new cases. I think this is the highest per capita number in Canada yet. On a lighter note, I'm sure Michael would have appreciated the caller and her boyfriend each buying their own copy of his book. Definitely. Gregory, that tough crowd with Colin Quinn, it was not tough crowd. No. Biden repealing Taft-Hartley. So what are the people talking about? Is Biden repealing Taft-Hartley?
He has it on his website that he is.
Really?
Grassley's hitting him on it.
And nobody knew about it until Chuck Grassley started crowing about it.
Well, that's great. I hope he gets locked into that. Calling from Nebraska. I've been calling voters like Jeff for the past 2 weeks, and he has been a unicorn in terms of Trump to Biden. Lots of Trump voters that are undecided, hate Trump, but have reservations about Biden or just fed up with everything. God help us all next week. Evan from New Jersey. 48 states, PR and DC have rising cases yesterday, 90,000. 14 in particular have seen rises cases for the month of October, like 45-degree angles rising consistently. Yeah, it's going to be a tough winter, I think. NY State upstate. Do you ever hear from Guy Lawson? Love to have you get on. I do talk to Guy. We got to have him on soon. I do talk to Guy on a semi-regular basis, actually. Mo, can you explain what happened to the listeners? I'm not watching. Oh, she dressed up in a clown suit. Okay. These radical centrists have worms in their brains. Go away, please. DC statehood is really important. We need that, definitely. KMR Cray McNamee. Kevin in Bucks County here. My dad is one of the new COVID positive cases this week and is in hospital isolation for another week. On the bright side, he's a Trump voter and planned to vote on Tuesday. Womp womp. One less GOP vote.
Wow.
Again, Pennsylvania.
Oh
well, good
God.
luck with your dad. I'm sorry to hear that. Sort of. I hope he's better. I hope he gets better. But I understand what you're saying. I mean, that's the thing. Is that like you get all these Democratic votes already in there? You know, let's hope for some snow, something like that. Big Dick Cheney. Sam, that was no squirrel. That was Japanese anime legend Totoro. I know that book. Juggernaut Magnum, Oregon Health Update, where irony meets agony. Andrew from DC, that clown COVID death report makes me sympathize with how hard it must be to be a writer for Saturday Night Live these days. Cuddly Cudlow, I finally signed up to be a member for the first time. Don't you think the different tier levels a little dated? You're still not done with the Cernovich beef? Poor man has a top knot now. Leave him alone. Does he have a ponytail?
Yeah, he had a very bizarre new age photo that came out this summer.
Yeah, he's pivoting.
Wow. He's on a journey.
Check on him.
Joseph Campbell.
Yeah, maybe I should update it. Dr. Chaos, if Jews have been secretly controlling the world for centuries, wouldn't that make them Western values, Jewish values? And there you go. All right, 3 more of these. 4 more. Robot Cat. Marcy Wheeler had a nice thread about Greenwald yesterday. Also, has anyone considered the big guy mentioned as God and the 10% was a tithe to the Catholic Church? Find that very, very hard to believe. Find that very, I'm telling you, a guy like Hunter, there's no doubt in my mind. He says he's putting aside 10% for the big guy, and he pretends like he's going to give it to his dad, and he puts it in his pocket. There's just no doubt. There's just no doubt. I'm sorry. Like, that's
Maybe
what that's.
Maybe it's for his dick.
Or he's putting aside 10% for his penis. It's one of those two things.
It has a lot of needs.
Bunker Inspector. Hey, is the MR community decided on a drink everyone would be drinking on election day? I've had a dry October, so plan on doing some actual damage to myself on election day, regardless of the outcome. You know, at first I thought a dry October was the name of a drink, and I was like, I'll try that. Until I find out it means don't drink during October. That I've missed that boat. Chris from VA, Trump internal polling shows him up 6-3. Yeah. Lacquer Mercedes. I just became a member. I'm new to this. Is this working? Hello, it is. And the final I am of the day. Matt, Brendan, Jamie, good job this week. Folks, we will see you on Monday. Get ready. 12 hours on Tuesday. You got to watch every minute of it. Comrade Mario, have you guys talked about the Tim Pool Vouch debate? Am I wrong to think Tim Pool is not like other right-wing grifters and that he appears to be good-natured but just dumb? It is true. I don't think he's super bright, but I also do think he knows what's buttering his bread, if you will. Ladies and gentlemen, see you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bulb, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know